Peace, peace, resurrect. I'll get my aunt. We are just getting stuff warmed up. We start at 4 o'clock. Bringing in some of the cosmos, cleaning out the energy. Got some sage in the building. We got the altar with the elements and our elders who transition and our ancestors and our inspiration in the building. Happy Thursday to everybody in the building. Clean yourself off. Tap into this conversation. Ground yourself. We're going to start at 4 o'clock. We're waiting for a couple more folks from H.O.L.L.A. Who's going to join probably through live. Share the live. Today, we're going to get into the first part of our series. We're going to talk more about that in the introduction. What's good? There you go, Blackgod. Join. There you go, Blackgod. Live. What's good? Did you get in? All right. What's good? You can hear me? That's right. You hear me? Yo, mic check.
Yeah, I hear you now. Resurrect.
Resurrect. Kumi might be joining us too, but we're going to get going in the welcome. Everybody, resurrect under my eye. Power to the war. Power to the ancestors. All of our political prisoners. Cory, one of the organizers with H.O.L.L.A. H.O.L.L.A is an organization that was developed in prison, coming off of the new prison movement work. We babies of the 1970 prison movement, the Resurrection Study Group, the Green Haven think tank. We do African Center, youth development, and community development, healing work that's grounded in organizing work. Today was good. Kumi, you trying to join? You can't join? Come join, Kumi. How you join? Send a request through. Come through. Everybody share the live. This is our first part of a 3-part series. Today we're going to be talking about, the series is the non-traditional approach to human and healing justice. And we're sharing our analysis on the alternative justice movements with a focus on healing justice, transformative justice, restorative justice, and human justice. We want to share our concerns, our warnings, our critiques. We want this to be in dialogue. We want this critique, this feedback to be in feedback with everybody. We want to make this conversation a little bit more public. We've been talking to a lot of our organizers, friends, comrades, program developers about healing justice, restorative justice, transformative justice for years now. So we just adding on to that conversation. Today, the focus is on re-theorizing the non-traditional approach. The second conversation is going to be on Sunday, October 8th, and we're going to focus on what is the non-traditional approach analysis to healing justice, transformative justice, restorative justice, and human justice. So you definitely want to tune in on Sunday, 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern time. And we're going to close off the series, part 3, on Monday, 4 to 5 p.m., talking about future implications and future strategies of the non-traditional approach. With that being said, I'm going to pass it to Blackgod to introduce himself. And Kumi, can you join? Everybody and people in the chat, share your thoughts, share your analysis, Share your feedback in the chat. Share the live too. Share the live. This is an important conversation. There's a lot of conversation, a lot of funding, a lot of practices, a lot of programs, and a lot of times healing justice, transformative justice, restorative justice, and we will even put in the non-traditional approach in human justice. These concepts are entangled, like they're the same thing. And from H.O.L.La's genetic memory and our institutional memory and our analysis, we see these paradigms as different paradigms. Shout out to our elders and our big sisters and family, Kara Page and Erica Woodland, in the book Healing Justice Lineages. This book is clearly, one of the analysis that's really saying that these projects are different. Healing justice and restorative justice are not the same project, right? And H.O.L.L.A, we even saying let's untangle transformative justice and healing justice and human justice. So looking forward for folks to share the live. Blackgod, are you there? While we waiting for Blackgod to join, Kumi, do you want to try to join? Do you want to try to join, Kumi? Because Blackgod look froze. Gems was good. Spiritual wholeness was good. We tapped in, man. We talking about healing justice, transformative justice, restorative justice, human justice, and a non-traditional approach to criminal and social justice, which we are updating to the non-traditional approach to human and healing justice. I don't know how to request you, Kumi. Remove, go live. Well, I got you. We bringing in one of our organizers, Kumi, in the building. What's good? Resurrect.
Hello. Resurrection. Great day. Can y'all hear me?
We hear you loud and clear. Resurrect.
Okay. Yes. Peace.
Introduce yourself. How you doing? What's your CP? Why you doing the dialogue? How long you been organizing? How long you been with H.O.L.L.A? Anything else you want to share? Of course, the
All right. And I'm reading the comments. You might want to do what you did with me to Blackgod because it was giving me issues on signing on too. But yes. Hello, everybody. My name is Kumi Owusu. I'm the Ultimate Creative. I'm a healing justice organizer, as Cory said. So yeah, I've been organizing with H.O.L.L.A for almost 3 years now, but organizing in period for most of my life. I want to say since definitely middle school, but more seriously since I graduated high school, And yeah, I'm excited today, starting the series off about healing and human justice, really going in depth on that. Yeah, I'm excited to gain some perspective, to share some perspective. Because healing justice may not be everyone's vocabulary, and whether or not you organize, you can participate in it. You most likely already do if you do any indigenous or cultural practices. And then what was I going to say? But restorative justice is in a lot more people's vocabulary just because of where funding is and just how historical events have moved. But yeah, so I want to be able to educate people that are doing or practicing restorative justice, that there are other forms of justice that we should be educated on. So that's my
Blackgod, man. I don't know if you're gonna be. So that's good. Blackgod, I might want to try to jump off and try again, but we're gonna go into an affirmation pledge. Hopefully, jump off and jump back on by the time we get to that pledge. But brace yourself from Instagram trying to
okay. Yes. It was a bit choppy, but I'm gonna hop off and hop back on.
Yeah, I wasn't talking, but I was talking to Blackgod. Peace, peace, peace. So we're gonna get into our African pledge. All right, I see Blackgod requesting. We working this out, man. How do I get in? Hopefully you in. Are you in?
Resurrect, y'all.
Yeah. You want to introduce yourself?
Resurrect. My name is Blackgod. I'm an organizer with H.O.L.L.A for at least 3 years consecutively. I've been an organizer with the Resurrection Study Group, which is an extension of H.O.L.L.A, and that's over 30 years. So this movement been going on for at least 30-something years, and H.O.L.L A is an excellent transformation from the Resurrection Study Group into now the political science of today's technology, today's social movements, today's everything. So this is what we have to understand, that the movements transcend. They develop and they might change the name, but the concept is the same. So I've been organizing for at least 30 years in the social criminal justice movement. Human justice is just what it is. It's about us as human beings being justified in American society and understanding how white supremacy affects us and the needs that we have to incorporate so that we could heal as a people from the historical trauma of slavery, incarceration, and all of the other ill effects that have taken place inside of our communities that have made us other than the people that we should be, kings and queens. So I'm here. We're going to talk about healing justice. I'm feeling this move, and I hope y'all understand what we're getting ready to do. This is a very unique science that we get into that's African-centered, and we like to say Afrocentric, and from a Pan-African perspective. We incorporate the queer community, the LGBT community. All of this is a movement that has historical foundations dating back to our Kemetic history. So today we're going to really get into some things, like Cory and Kumi said. Human justice is about us as a people, and first we have to center ourselves as a people from an Afrocentric perspective and understand where we're going with this. This isn't just some IG live. This is about our history. This is about the Black Liberation Movement, and this is about us moving forward. And with that, I'm going to pass it back.
Fire. I see the chat giving you love, giving you fire. Once again, for the folks just joining, we got the altar set up. We got our legacy. We got our ancestors. We got our empirical, spiritual, and experiential evidence of who we are, particularly the non-traditional approach. Today we talk about re-theorizing the non-traditional approach. But this is part one of a series. We're going to have part 2 on Sunday, part 3 on Monday. Part 2 will talk more about transformative justice, human justice, restorative justice, and healing justice. Part 3 will talk about what's the future strategy. We want to start this off with a libation to our ancestors. So please join us wherever you are at with the African pledge. This is a call and response. So you're going to repeat after I repeat. Ashe? Ashe?
Ashe. Cory, for time's sake, go through it and let's keep it moving, because we got to get some of these people this information.
Yeah. We got to start with spirit, though. Everything starts with spirit. You don't get no truth if you don't got no spirit.
I'm feeling that. Talk about it.
This is what human and healing justice is talking about.
Talk about it.
African
Talk about it.
We are an African people.
We are African people.
We will remember the humanity, glory, suffering of our ancestors.
We remember the humanity, glory, and suffering of our ancestors.
We will honor the struggles of our elders.
We will honor the struggle of our elders.
We will strive to bring new values and new life to our people.
We will strive to bring new values and life to our people.
We will have peace and harmony amongst us.
We will have peace and harmony amongst us.
We will be loving.
We'll be loving,
sharing,
caring,
and creative.
And creative.
We will work.
We will work.
Study and listen.
study and listen.
So we may learn.
So we may learn.
Learn so we may teach.
Learn so we may teach.
Cultivate self-reliance.
We will cultivate self-reliance.
We will struggle to resurrect and unify our homeland.
We will struggle to resurrect and unify our homeland.
We will have discipline.
We will have discipline,
Patience, devotion, and courage. We will live as models to provide new direction for our people.
We will live as models to provide new directions for our people.
We will be free and self-determined.
We will be free and self-determined.
We are an African people.
We are an African people.
We will win and we have won.
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 I say. Ancestors to the ancestors. So now, with no further ado, let's get right to it. The first round we're going to jump into is breaking down what is the non-traditional approach to criminal and social justice. We're going to pass the Blackgod to give y'all some wisdom on that.
This is very deep right here. The non-traditional approach to criminal and social justice is a historical analysis of why Blacks and Latinos are the majority of the prison system all over the country. But it specifically deals with New York City. This is a historical movement that has its roots in the Black Liberation Army, the NOI, all social progressive movements that started, and these movements winded up in the prison system in 1971 because of J. Edgar Hoover edict with COINTEL program that said he must disable, dismantle, and stop any Black messiah from arising. So this led to a lot of youth organizations, Black liberation organizations, and all movements being incarcerated on false charges, in which we still have political prisoners incarcerated to this day because of this edit. And this is how the non-traditional approach started. Because in 1971, it was an uprising in Attica. And the uprising was about these Black socially conscious prisoners coming together and saying, no more. Y'all gonna treat us as human beings. We got to do something. And then after Attica, and Attica happened in 1971, which was a massacre where hundreds of Black socially conscious prisoners died, was murdered by the governor's sanction to go in there, take over the jail, and they murdered hundreds of Black men. On the record, it say 42. But if you look at the documentaries, if you look at the pictures, you see that hundreds of Black men died. And it was just because of them standing up. So after the Attica uprising, over 500 of them went to Greenhaven Correctional Facility, where a think tank was formed. A think tank was of socially conscious prisoners coming together and saying, yo, what's good? What's going on right now? And they began to develop questions of wondering why so many Black people was in prison. They began to ask each other questions. Where you from? Where you from? Where you grew up? And they began to find out that they was cousins, that they grew up in the same neighborhoods, that they didn't come from all over New York City or all over New York State. They came from Pacific communities. So a basic question was developed. And the basic question was, how is it that Blacks and Latinos only represent 25 to 28% of New York State, but at the very same time represent over 85% of the prison system? And what was so more alarming is that not only was the prison system covered with 85% of Blacks and Latinos, but 75% of them came from Pacific communities. Pacific communities in New York City. So now it was an understanding that prisoners didn't come from all over the state of New York State. They came from Pacific communities, and these communities targeted because of the social and political movements that they had in these communities, and these communities is what flooded the prison system. So in answering this basic question, we have to go through her historical perspective. We have to trace blacks and Latinos, and this is the first part of the non-traditional approach to the criminal justice system. It's a historical perspective. So we have to trace from 1940 to 1990 of how blacks and Latinos became the majority of the system. And we see in the 40s, 50s, 60s, how COINTEL program, our social movements made us become the majority of the system. The non-traditional approach is an analysis of the prison industrial complex and how it became a parallel system within New York State, and how all over the country we see that the same 7 neighborhoods that represent over 75% of the prison system are represented. If you go to New Orleans, you see that it's 7 wards that represent the majority of the criminal justice system. If you go to California, you see it's 2 communities that represent the majority of the criminal justice system. So the non-traditional approach is holistic in its effect, as that it shows the analysis how white supremacy attacks blacks and Latinos and makes them part of an industrial market to better the white supremacist activities and keeping us down and making our movements less. And this is why we're talking about healing justice, because we have to heal from the white supremacist motives, the white supremacist actions, the white supremacist activities that keep us down, that keep us incarcerated. So the non-traditional approach shows that historical perspective of how we became the majority of the system. Because prior to 1940, the criminal justice system was all white. You had a trickle of blacks. But by 1990s and 1980s, we became 85% of the prison system. So the non-traditional had 3 basic points: the historical perspective, the direct relationship, and 3 program components. The second part of the non-traditional approach is the direct relationship, in which demonstrates how is a direct relationship between blacks and Latinos and Pacific communities. 75% of the prison system come from 7 neighborhoods in New York City. That's crazy. If you really look at it and you really say, wait, hold up. New York City, New York State got over 8 billion people. Now you telling me that 75% of the prison system is coming from 7 specific communities. Yes, they are. And there's political ramifications about that, and we're going to get into all of that. And the last part is the 3 program components. The 3 program components shows us how to so-called habilitate ourselves. I said habilitate ourselves, not rehabilitate, because you can't rehabilitate something that's never been habilitated. So the 3 program components shows us what we need to incorporate in any type of organization, nonprofit, community organization, or movement. It gives us 3 components that must be instituted within them 3 components to ensure that you could create what we call the new African man. If these components aren't incorporated in there, you don't create the new African man. You don't have the full analysis of the non-traditional approach, which has transformed into something else, which we will get into later. But you need these 3 components to rehabilitate that man that has been traumatized through the criminal justice system and through social ills that has made him less than himself. And with that, I'm going to pass to my brother, Cory. And that was just a brief analysis of what the non-traditional approach is, which was the major contributors to it was Larry White, Luke Marr, God bless him, that's our brother, and Eddie Ellis Kibaka. So I'm pass that on.
Shout out to Blackgod for that non-traditional approach to criminal and justice history. You want to add anything to that, Kumi?
What I heard, you did a great job. That was
that was, it's so much that, you know, and that's why we implore y'all to go through these 3 series, because we're gonna be adding on. And I understand what she's saying from, excuse me, I'm beefing. I'm ready to get into this. I'm sorry.
So for those of you, man, H.O.L.L.A is doing trainings on a non-traditional approach. So you can reach out to us, website, FaceTime, DM us, text anybody on H.O.L.L.A. We doing trainings. We are giving this away to our community. If you one of us, you from the 7 neighborhoods, you a community member, we giving this away. And if you an institution that is not my community, we are charging people TA services to train people up. What I want to hit on with that is just shout out to that feedback. Shout out to the Green Haven think tank, to co-founder Bob Hassan, Blood, right? Shout out to all of the elders of the Resurrection Study Group and Pac, Kush, Kishaka. That's really important. That was developed in the 70s all the way to the early 2000s to right now. And this conversation today is us talking about really the updating of that analysis. And we also want to make it clear that the non-traditional analysis comes from our legacy of the Black liberation tradition, not just the Black liberation traditions of the 1960s and the 70s, but our genetic memory of our Black liberation traditions across generations. And the NTA was a strategy that we used at that time when we found ourselves in prison, but it's not our full analysis too, and we're going to get more into that with the rest of the series. But just want to let that know, because like Blackgod said, a lot of people have colonized the NTA analysis, and we just want to let it be known that was just a strategy within our larger analysis of Black liberation, and we coming to reclaim our analysis, and this presentation is some of that energy as well. With that being said, I'll pass to Blackgod to say any closing words on a non-traditional approach, and then we're going to move into human justice, because after the non-traditional approach was developed, and when Eddie started seeing people not really understanding what we meant about non-traditional approach, not understanding the 3 program components, had another section in it talking about resurrection and talking about the healing process. So we started to develop new language analysis in the NTA called human justice. So that's what we're going to talk about next. Blackgod, let Blackgod wrap up any closing words.
I just want to say that the non-traditional approach started in Green Haven Correctional Facility in 1989. The main propellant of the non-traditional approach and getting it out to society, getting it out throughout the 72 prisons that was inactive in the 1990s in prison, was the Resurrection Study Group. And with that movement, we now come into what we see as H.O.L.L.A. We come into a lot of the social progressive movements, and we have to understand through our studies and through this H.O.L.L.A. presentation on IG how things transform and who propels these movements. The Resurrection Study Group really needs its accolades, because they felt a lot of the adversity, not only from the administration, but from society, from family, and from everybody else. So today, we could actually say that we went from the non-traditional approach to the human and healing justice spirit. And that's what we're going to get into today. And let's look at our movements, from the civil rights movement to the Black liberation movement to the social movements we have, and understand those transformations and movements and how we get to where we at today. And with that, I pass it back to Kumi.
And with that said, we're going to keep it moving, man. So, the non-traditional approach really came outside, when Eddie came out in the early 90s. And we also need to document that system, the state, they spent thousands and probably millions of dollars trying to build research to discredit the non-traditional approach. Non-traditional approach has been attacked, and to Blackgod's point, the Resurrection Study Group, who was holding down the analysis and the journey of the non-traditional approach, they was also attacked in prison as well, right? So the non-traditional approach analysis has been attacked ever since we have been articulating it. And people have been attacking it, not only trying to use, but people have also started taking certain parts of the analysis and rename it. And act like it's a new idea that doesn't come from the larger analysis of the Black liberation tradition. So Eddie understands all of this because he was the center of many of those attacks in the early, in 2012 with the Center for New Leadership. We started really developing a new approach called human justice, right? So this analysis was one to really focus, this is not only a political and analytical thing to talk about how racism and the system have criminalized our communities over generations and target our communities, but it's also saying after we created these wounds and after the criminal punishment system have created this damage, and how these institutions within these systems have deteriorated the spiritual, moral, political, and economic fabric of those communities, that we need healing. We need human justice, right? So the human justice analysis was developed in 2012, and we launched a lot of different things. We launched a verbal campaign, and we also wrote analysis. And one of the articles that we wrote that never was published, it was called Human Justice, Healing the Damages of the American Punishment System. And Eddie Ellis was one of our main authors of this paper. And we write that the human justice analysis reframes the dominant discourse in thinking of the criminal legal issues to create a new justice paradigm, a new normal. It seeks to challenge America's flight in white supremacists run away from the legacy of racial exclusion, racial terror, and reshapes a true justice paradigm, one that moves away from criminal justice and punishment to human justice and healing, right? So that was the spirit of the work that we was doing in 2012. A couple of other things to mention. That we also was looking for a framework to focus on resurrection, the human development, right? Understanding that the war, that systems of oppression, that crime-generative factors, that these institutions in our neighborhood, they dehumanize us, they limit human to reach their fullest potential. So,
let me add on real quick, like, because you just said crime-generative factors, and I think we really need to, like, put that in perspective.
About 1 minute and a half, and bring that back. We got to wrap this up.
All right, 1 minute. Crime-generative factors are factors that we have identified that are social, economic, political defunctions inside of our community that propel Blacks and Latinos to commit crimes. These crime-generative factors create attitudes. These attitudes are summarized as fuck the white man's law, I gotta get mine, and so forth. And we have to understand that crime-generative factors start from anywhere from family, miseducation, racism, lack of family support, homelessness, crime, and unemployment. All of these are factors that generate crime. When you got factors influxing your community that generates crime, these are going to create a certain attitude within the individual. And this is why healing justice is so important, because these are factors impart and impact our lives and the social fiber of our communities. So you have to address the attitude that these factors incorporate inside of the mindsets of our youth. It's not their behaviors, it's a culture that was set from these factors. And this culture is based on their attitudes. And this is where healing justice come into play. You got to heal from these factors to move on to your next level of understanding white supremacy and how it affects an individual in his everyday life.
So human justice is an outcome-driven philosophy and resistance movement, human justice, when we first launched this, that merges the pursuit of justice with the foundational principles of human rights, human development. right? And it was critical because we been knew from our genetic memory that criminal justice was a lie, that it's an oxymoron, that there's no justice in the criminal justice system, right? Right? The system of capitalism, it's a system of enslavement, a system of imperialism. It's about making winners and losers. And we are grounded in that historical reality, right? And we throw on our lineages of analysis of race, gender, class, geography to understand how this punishment system, whether we in Haiti, whether we in Puerto Rico, whether we here in America, whether we in Mississippi, how it's stratified, how these institutions stratify to dehumanize us, right? So we also knew that it was important with this analysis of human justice, that besides the social political resurrection and reawakening, we have to concurrently have a spiritual journey with that. So human justice reminded us that this ain't just about policies in our programs, in our analysis, in our resurrection, that we got to include a spiritual journey, right? That morality to our leadership, morality to our community, a set of standards, so that when we go from the that people look up with a spiritual self too. Couple of things that I'm gonna pass to Kumi. Human justice, when we launched it, it was analysis to deconstruct and dismantle the prison industrial complex. And one of the ways that Eddie and our leadership said that one of the things that we know we got to do is slow up who's going into the complex in the first place, right? And that we can't think about punishment, because punishment is not healing. So we need resurrection and healing justice programs that complicate the system, putting our young people and family members further into the system. We don't get them in the system in the first place. So how we developing programs, right? How we working within our communities, how we doing policy work, all of those in between to slow down the prison industrial complex right there. Another part of that process is how do we develop resurrection or healing programs within the prison, right? So that the people are not coming back to our neighborhoods without no resurrection, without healing, right? Without their spirit lifted up, right? And as we doing this, the goal is to be developing local and national groups and coalitions and cadres. All of us working to replace and dismantle this system, right, at 3 levels. At 3 levels. We got to have system accountability. That means the system got to be transparent. What research do you got? What analysis? What are their best practices? We want to see what accountability is within the systems. And when we're talking about systems, we're talking about institutional accountability. Because institutions maintain the system. What is your program? How is your program aligned with the non-traditional approach, with our community-specific programs? That's not just for state institutions, that's also for grassroots community-based institutions. Who are we accountable to? Secondly, we got to do individual transformation and individual resurrection. All of our programs can't be service-based. Now, our programs got to be service-based, but we got to have programs that actually got rituals and programs of resurrection. And
add that community Pacific in there, bro. Add that community Pacific in there.
That are community specific to the young people, to the queer people, to the trans people, to the older people that come from our lineages that are not just about serving people, but it's about resurrecting people, right? And then our system accountability work and our individual transformational work at the same time. They got to be focused at the community level to do healing work and make community transformation at the community level, so that we empowering those same communities that's most impacted by the system. So human justice was brought into place because we seen that people was misusing a non-traditional approach to criminal injustice analysis. We also understood in our early analysis, we didn't articulate enough about the damage and the wounds that the institutions in the criminal punishment system have done to us as individuals and as families, and we want to articulate more clearly the need for healing from Lord, and continue to endure. And I'll pass it to Kumi to see if you want to add anything to that. And audience, give your feedback as we look at it. Any questions, give your feedback.
Affirmations, all of it, please. As far as like human justice, I think well, even for me, but push it, how to progress that in justice as well. So yeah, I'm ready. Unless like
Nah, you good. Go to next thing we're gonna talk about is healing justice. You know, so let's go into healing justice.
So healing justice. And there's resources for all this information. So you can Google, you can watch YouTube. Please educate yourself. But you'll find that we not just from healing justice, criminal and social justice, and in practice, as Cory and Blackgod was saying, that they don't allow for healing from the state, right? So healing justice recognizes the individual. Let's say two people in a situation, right? Recognize both individuals, not just the offender and the victim, but both people that allow their condition says that.
So she gonna have to respect.
And we're holding the state accountable as the markers for power, even though it's still that way, the people are the gatekeepers of power in any democracy, right? And in this so-called democracy, we only feel as if we are exerting that right or whatever because it's been made kind of an option. You know, you can choose to vote if you want to or not. You can choose to have certain political organizations or be educated in it if you want to or not. I know when I was in high school, civics was an elective. It wasn't mandatory. So you had to take that or you had to take psychology. So, yeah, and all this, how the state introduces our role to us, how the state introduces politics to us, they keep themselves at a distance. They keep themselves, distance from us so that we can. And that happens by many different ways. That happens by gentrification. We're physically no longer in the same community interface with our local electeds, right? If you go to school, schools like to outsource their punishment sometimes and accountability to our local police, right? Security or whatever, instead of handling it within themselves, instead of listening to the families and handling it within themselves. So, yeah, there are many different ways in which healing justice can be applied, but how I want to tie it into the non-traditional approach is the crime-generative factors and crime-generative attitudes, starting with that Blackgod was talking about. So he listed them. I'm going to relist them just so we can follow the train of thought, right? So we have, and they do go in a specific order, right? The first one has to be structural violence is ideological oppression and institutional oppression. So an institution is where we're at right now, right? Like the why or whatever. But the ideology is how the people move through that. So if I go to school and it's racist, the ideology behind this school is racist, I'm going to be discriminated against in that school. So how does that affect my family breakdown, which is the next crime-generative factor? How does that affect my education? I'm going to an institution that is actively working against me. How does that affect my employment in the future after I graduate from that institution? How does that, if I graduate, how does that affect employment? If I can't get a job, I have to hustle, right? So how do I hustle? And if you know about the underground market or the dark web or the black market, whatever, those are many ways in which. If I have to hustle, if I have to hustle and I don't make enough money, I might become homeless. That's another factor, which is what the crisis going on in the world right now.
That's right.
If I'm homeless,
Talk about it, Kumi. Break that shit down.
If I'm homeless,
You might turn up. You might have to turn up
and commit a crime, right? Now I have to commit an actual crime to come up with whatever kind of capital I need to live my life, right? And after you commit a crime, your ability to being an addict to drugs or anything like that, or living a very short life, goes up. So those are the crime-generative factors that produce crime-generative attitudes, which we experience all the time, right? People not wanting to be accountable, people being very defensive. There are a lot of times we talk about situations that make the social media or the news, and we don't have the consideration of like, why are people so defensive? Why can't people talk about their issues? Why can't people do anything else other than fighting or being violent to address anything? So healing justice is how our families really have to heal. I'm Ghanaian. I was born in the 1997. But like most of the world that experienced like imperialism and colonization and everything, they were in structured violence in their systems too back home. So we have to build, like, studying has taught me that, you know, the organizers that we're talking about in the Black Panther movement, Black Liberation Army, 7 neighborhoods. These were our students, college students. These were our doctors. You know what I'm saying? These were not people that had any other kind of exception. They too had to be politicized and radicalized through the work. And when you're the only one in your family doing that, you have to try to help people that don't want to help you. You have to heal to not having any kind of support, and you have to heal to sustain your own energy and yourself while doing this. So the term is, which all does fall under healing justice, but the term itself was coined in the early 2000s in the South. So shout out to our ancestors, yeah. In the South, because activists and organizers that were doing a lot of grassroots work were indulging in Western practices of like self-care, and it wasn't working. You know, like still in talking about the Black Panthers, the Black Liberation Army, anyone organizing in this time, self-medication was a thing because we didn't have access to proper health care, which was also a thing that we were organizing against. So connecting that to the early 2000s when they came up with healing justice, if you are practicing your indigenous grassroots practices that can bring a sense of peace, a sense of calm, energy to you, and you can share that with other people in your community, that's healing justice, right? So there's another way to separate Afrocentric lifestyles from Western European lifestyles, and how one size really doesn't fit all, how you can't approach healing in a very general way. Moving on to the book. Because we are reading a book on it now. A lot of things with this book right now. When it's outlining healing justice in movement and political framework. So we have reproductive justice, disability justice, environmental justice, harm reduction, and transformative justice, right? And healing justice seeks to intervene on generational trauma to build collective power towards resistance. So, right, healing circles. If you engage in a healing circle, because that I read highlight marginalized groups too, right? How often do we consider disabled people in our spaces? How often do we consider seniors that were harmed when they were younger? Open doors. Facts, has open doors in our spaces. So you're having a healing circle, but you're not acknowledging your spiritual self and you're not engaging with your ancestors. The healing that can come from that healing circle is really not going to like fulfill you, right? Because the practice, even though it's indigenous to African culture, if you're not engaging all with that culture, you're not getting all. It's like processed foods. It's like processed foods. Okay, you had the whole grain. You had the practice that brought you most of the healing. I'm gonna wrap it up because I know we got time. But processed foods breaks that down and only gives you crumbs, right? So healing justice also highlights the community-specific approach that NTA talks about, it has to be done by people that are indigenous to that area, to that region. You can't have, if you haven't experienced the oppression, you're not going to know what kind of healing you need, or other people in your area that they've experienced the kind of healing that they need. So healing justice is for everybody. There are roles for everyone in the family, in the community to partake and to educate on when it comes to healing justice. Because also, as far as our trauma and stress is concerned, restorative justice and transformative justice don't address the historical and generational stress that we live with and trauma that we also have, like we're born with, really. Trauma changes the physiological foundation of your body. And if you were born into a family that experienced trauma, you're not that kind of your health not being addressed in the access to healthcare that you have, or it's not even covered by your insurance. Like the state is just not making it possible for you to get that kind of information that you need. And they want to protect you. So you're going to continue to live with addictions, and teach that to your kids by way of behavior and attitude. You're going to continue to live in underdevelopment and miseducation and teach that to your kids as you experience. And you're not going to be able to make those connections. So yeah, justice is from a lot of things. I'm excited. We do, as we were saying, we're doing community trainings on the NTA. I'm excited to hear back from the people in our 7 minutes what possibilities of healing justice do they see in their own buildings, in their own families. Because that's also really going to help us continue the conversation and the work that we're going to do. So.
Blackgod, you want to say anything about healing justice? Want to add a minute or two to that?
Yeah, I just want to add, Kumi did a beautiful job. I like how she connected the non-traditional approach with specific movements and all of that. So only thing I can add at this time is healing justice is about us. It's about Black people coming together and really digging deep. We scared to be vulnerable. You know what I'm saying? Let's keep it on what it is. We done got caught up in this white supremacist movement, in this white supremacist atmosphere, in this COINTELPRO attack that it's so hard for us to be us among us. And we got to be able to talk about our vulnerabilities. Even if we get into Black men and Black women relationships, we see that there's no healing justice. We see that there's no vulnerability. Everybody got to be strong, and everybody got to stand their ground, and everybody got to be, this phenomenal person, instead of really understanding the traumatic effects of what white supremacy, the criminal justice system, and all of the social ills that have affected us throughout our lives, that have brought us down, that we can't be ourselves with each other. We can't be real. And everybody say, yo, let's be real, be real. But we can't be real without showing vulnerability. You know what I'm saying? And this is what human justice is. This is showing vulnerability and understanding that, yo, I'm fucked up. I've been through some shit. And I need my people to understand that. Give me that safe space to talk about this shit I've been through, so that I can heal, so that I could be the best person for my community. And that's why I love what Kumi brought all of those aspects into that, and saying, yo, there's a lot of shit out there that we're not even recognizing that impede us from being the best people, the best person that we could be. So let's get into this healing justice and understanding that healing justice isn't just sitting down and talking. Healing justice is sitting down and being real. Healing justice is understanding what we've been through. Healing justice is understanding the Black liberation movement. Healing justice is about understanding the queer movement. Healing justice is understanding how white supremacy affects us every fucking day. It ain't got to be a white man calling you a nigga that affects you. It could be your girl not appreciating you. It could be your husband saying, yo, I need you to do more. This is the healing justice that we need. And we don't understand that as Black people, as feminist radical movement, that we have to understand that, yo, shit is coming at us from all aspects. Until we sit down and talk about this shit, until we sit down and say, yo, listen, this shit hurt. I'm hurting right now. Why is it so hard for us as Black people to sit down together and say, yo, I'm hurting. I'm affected by these social economic conditions that are impeding on my life. Why is it so hard for us to say that amongst each other? But we could go to social service and tell them, yo, I ain't got enough money to pay my rent. But we can't sit down with our brother and sister and say, yo, babe, I need help. I'm hurt. And I pass out on. Thank you, Kumi, because you gave me a spirit that I didn't see.
And you made some great connections too just there, Blackgod. I want to close up my point with saying, yeah, I think everyone can agree, by and large, Black people are not acting, when they African lives because of colonization and everything. And what
Yo, we didn't get through round one and we at 456. I love Holla.
Last round, and you ain't found. This is the last round. We're trying to do it.
Yeah. This is the last one. The last one.
But all of this shit is like coming together, bro.
No, but however we are like being exploited, like everyone else is being exploited that way. So healing justice is also saying like, yeah, as you heal, however your ethnic people have to heal, you're expressing that indigenous culture, right? So it will allow me as a Ghanaian to really fully be Ghanaian, all of us to fully be African, but also anyone that's from anywhere and be who you are culturally, wherever you're at, right? So it's healing justice for all. We're just talking about it from the framework of NCA because that's our history, that's what we stand on, right? So yeah, I just wanted to include that point. We can wrap it up.
Yeah, I would just add, man, just to sum, that was dope, man. So just to leave y'all with healing justice, man. It's a spiritual political framework. It's anti-capitalist abolitionist analysis. It's a focus that healing happens on a two-way street, deeply inwardly, working through the personal trauma, and deeply outwardly, dismantling institutions that bring trauma in the first place, right? It's community specific. It pull on relationships. It pull on ancestral lineages. It pull on community knowledge systems, legacies of knowledge systems, right? It's local. Healing justice is within the long legacy of the Black liberation tradition, right? It's Black people's birthright, right? It brings us back to our original instruction, original culture comes with healing into it. So to Blackgod and Kumi's point, when we don't have relationships or have programs or have conversations, you know, it ain't just about vulnerability. It's how you listen with vulnerability, how you build programs of vulnerability, how do you have home spaces with vulnerability. Not just how do we become vulnerability, how do we understand vulnerability as a theoretical need within healing justice in a pedagogical tool for our development and our healing. In closing today, we briefly covered the non-traditional approach to criminal and social justice. We briefly covered our elders and our legacy of human justice and why we moved to human justice. And then we talked about healing justice, And we did this to kind of really talk about how we theorizing the non-traditional approach to criminal and social justice, to the upgraded analysis, to the non-traditional approach. I'll close on this and pass to y'all for your last words. It's not a theoretical move. This is a theoretical, political, and strategy move because we believe the NTA has been co-opted, right, and misused, and we also updated. Our elder updated it, and we are remembering and updating and furthering that updation of the work, right? So it's critical that we stand on a non-traditional approach to human and healing justice. Any closing words about the updated analysis as we wrap up?
Yeah, we need we need everyone's participation. This is a saying, I don't know where it came from, but we are our own saviors or something. Like, it's us. It's literally us. Like, we got to be the ones to do this work. It's 2023. We're still in the beginning of the 21st century. Get excited. You know, whatever happens in 21, 23, we dedicate, it's set on what's happening today. So yeah, get excited, get involved. Reach out.
Any closing words, Blackgod, on the updated analysis?
My only closing words is that, yo, we got to understand that it's all right to talk about your shame and your vulnerability amongst your people and to grow. You know what I'm saying? We are so caught up on being this strong person, you know what I'm saying? Being this person that don't understand what healing justice is. Justice is a balance. Healing is a growth. We need to heal amongst each other. Slavery did some shit on us. White supremacy is continuing to do their numbers on us. We need to grow as a people and come together and say, I love you, sister. I love you, brother. And see where that get us. Because they got us so divided that we don't understand how the non-traditional approach, the criminal justice system, white supremacy, and all of these other factors are aimed to keep us down, are aimed to destabilize us as a people. They've seen what we did with the civil rights movement, the Black liberation movement. So they are bringing us down, and we don't see it that, yo, all we got to do is say, I love you, sister. I love you, brother. That's healing justice. Talk about your shames. Yo, I fucked up. I did such and such to my nephew. I did such to my sister. Yo, I killed a man. I killed a black man. Me personally, I did 26 years for killing a black man. I got to heal from that.
Got to bring it back.
And I love y'all. And I'm just saying, my healing never ends. And that's why we would have how all our lives link all together. How our lives link all together.
Book us.
We link.
Book us, hire us, call us, text us. We also got a documentary, an album. We got the African roots of healing justice, a non-traditional critique to the white supremacist roots of restorative justice. That's a training. If you want to get trained in our African roots of healing justice, critiquing restorative justice, reach out to us. You want to hear more of these stories, call us, text us. But we're going to get out of here today. Thank everybody for coming. Forward, share this live. This is part 1 of a 3-part series. Next 2 shows are coming up Sunday, October 8th and Monday, October 9th, 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern time. Next show, we're going to be going into the articles. We're going to be going into the scholarship of transformative justice, restorative justice, the non-traditional approach, healing justice, and we're going to be making analysis and feedback on what is our analysis of these justice systems. You don't want to miss that one. And then we're going to close on Monday talking about what's the future implications. You don't want to miss that one either. We're going to close out with the Asada Shakur Black Liberation Chant. Shout out to our sister Asada. Free all of our political prisoners. Free Asada. Free the land. Free them all. Kumi, do you want to lead us off?
Yes. All right. It is our duty to fight for our freedom.
It is our
duty to fight for our freedom.
It is our duty to win.
We must love one another.
We must love and respect one
another.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
It is our duty to fight for our freedom.
It is our
duty to fight for our freedom.
Our duty to win.
It is our duty to win.
We must love and respect one another.
We must love and respect one another.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
It is our duty to fight for our freedom.
It is our duty to fight for our freedom.
It is our duty to win.
It is our duty to win.
We must love and respect one another.
We must love and respect one another.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
We have nothing to lose but our chains. I say, peace, everybody. Have a good day. Free the land. Free the land. Free the land.